Next weekend we'll see 125,000 music and mud lovers come together under a multitude of tunes and tents for the Glastonbury Festival. And when festival favourites Dodgy take to the main stage on Saturday night, they'll be thinking ahead to this time next year, when their aim is to be hundreds of miles away in Bosnia. Why? Well, it all started this time last year when Glastonbury didn't happen, and the two big music events of the summer were the Oasis gigs at Nebworth and Loch Lomond. Dodgy turned down support slots at both and instead took themselves off to Bosnia to play a handful of low-key gigs on a trip which cost them £22,000.
If you're thinking of me.
For 5 years, the war in Bosnia made the headlines. But did it really sink in that just a couple of hours away from us by plane, in a country once favoured by Brits as a holiday destination, 250,000 people were dying?
First time I was just constantly confused. I didn't know who the good guys were. I didn't know why it was happening. But I went back feeling really happy that I came out here.
I was kind of really disgusted that it had happened in the 90s, in my generation, my era, you know.
You know that they've been through shit and, you know, you do your best to comprehend it, but you can't really.
Many bands have got any guts, all they want to do is make records and go to the States and see the good side of things. Just because the war's come here and recently left, it's just been forgotten. Yeah, it's part of Europe, simple as that.
But Dodgy can be bothered. Their time in Bosnia had such an effect on them that on their return they appealed for Glastonbury '98 or a similar festival to be staged in the former Yugoslavia. They said it would restore hope and that Bosnians will once again be able to enjoy the luxuries in life that we take for granted, like music. And it would also act as a reminder that we haven't forgotten our European neighbours. So I went back to Bosnia with Dodgy to see if their dream of staging a festival could become a reality and whether or not the people of Bosnia would really want it. And of course, Dodgy being Dodgy, they took their guitars just in case there was a chance of an impromptu gig. We went to Mostar, a part of Bosnia that was caught between Croatian and Serbian fighting and the scene of some of the worst shelling during the war.
Things like hospitals and communication centres and things like that are going to be the first things to be built by the major aid organisations and by the governments of that country. But none of these people will put any thought into the fact that it's essential for a community, especially the young people, to have music.
One of the great things, Glastonbury, is like, you know, cultural festival, and I think Bosnia needs culture. It's got its own culture, but Glastonbury is like a mixture of cultures from all over the world, from India, from like, you know, all different styles of music, and it's like the perfect thing. They're so responsive. They really love the gigs, and it doesn't matter who's playing, you know. They just leap about and get really sweaty, and just like back at home, you know.
The people here are concentrating on rebuilding their lives and their city, and to help them with that they want more than just charity from the rest of Europe.
You know, it's not everything food. If you bring some teas or something, no, this is not important. You can bring this, but food is not important for survive, to stay a human being. You know, I need your hand in my hand. Yeah. Really, I need you understand me. I need to just be my friend.
For Dodgy, being a friend means doing what they're good at, playing music, which is why they're so keen to see a festival staged here in Bosnia. And the charity War Child are right behind them. They're spending $2.5 million on the Pavarotti Music Centre for the youth of Mostar. The money was raised from the sales of Help, War Child's charity album.
Music was the way they cut the war out. You know, I've been in a few bars in Sarajevo when the bombardment's going on, and the volume goes up to cut out the sounds of war. Music is the obvious healer.
War Child are already using music as therapy in the classroom. These children are all refugees. They were forced to flee Mostar with what was left of their families as a result of ethnic cleansing. And you can't begin to imagine the horrors these young eyes have seen.
We had a little 6-year-old child who'd been blinded, and we gave her a triangle. And she did absolutely nothing. She just held the triangle for about an hour. And after an hour, she hit a note. she smiled. And her mother said that was the first smile since the start of the war.
We can't even talk the language. The idea is just to be really happy. Do you know what I mean? And like, and they go like, oh, he's really mad, you know, pulling wacky faces on. You know, and like kids love that, you know. Don't be an adult, be a child.
I was impressed with the teaching. Obviously, a lot of the kids were sort of a bit embarrassed because there was a lot of people in the class and there were lights and cameras and we were there. And they were a bit sort of afraid to come out a bit. And then he started jumping up and down and banging the tables. And they all jumped up and started joining on. I jumped up and went, hey! But it was like therapy for me, really. Like, come on, Matthew, get out of your sleepy stupor. And I was like, oh. So it worked on me, so it must work on the kids.
Fired up by the therapy session, Dodgy set off to pursue their quest of setting up a festival, something they'd been told back in Britain would be impossible to do. Following 5 years of war, there's still a tense atmosphere in Mostar. Although parts of the city have been rebuilt, the front line which divides east and west Croatians and Bosnians remains in ruins. An uneasy calm is maintained by the combined presence of the Spanish military and a civilian peacekeeping unit. So we sent Matt off to speak to the man at the top to seek some help.
It was here that the fighting between the Croats and the Bosniaks was certainly the fiercest. Now the situation is better. There are still a lot of difficulties. There are still a lot of division. Wounds are going to take a long, long time to heal.
Obviously, during the war, a lot of young people were denied access to the things that they love, such as culture and music. Do you think it's important to establish those things again after the war?
Certainly, and I think things like music, which is a universal language, can play a major part. The difficulty in places like Mostar is trying to get a combined audience.
Meanwhile, I met up with a real expert, a man who helps set up gigs all the time in Sarajevo. Can you tell me when you think it will be possible for big bands from the UK, from America, from Western Europe to come over here and stage events?
Well, U2 think it's possible on the 23rd of September when they're going to be playing in Kosovo Stadium. Again, the difficulty is they're having to truck in nearly all of the production.
If there are people watching at home who are touring, who are in a band, they could come and play in Bosnia.
Depends what their
tomorrow.
Economic expectation is, and this is the great difference. The reason that we talk about having to work for nothing, the reason we're subsidising concerts all the time, is because audiences don't have money. They're going to make a loss unless they're prepared to work with us beforehand over a period of time and see some commitment from their end towards getting sponsorship.
One important figure in helping bands do that is an old friend of Dodgy's, a local celebrity known as Chichak.
I suppose he's like very well respected, a bit like John Peel.
He's like Chris Evans.
Chris Evans, yeah. He gets stuck in behind the scenes helping with getting music to people in Bosnia, to the youth in Bosnia, and he's helping out with the U2 concert and any other concerts that can in the future that can happen in Sarajevo and Bosnia.
So how difficult is it to set up a big gig like this?
Osim toga, organizovati bilo koji koncert ima svojih dodatnih problema.
Our organisation, our concert have problem and difficulty.
Dodgy met Chichak last year when he invited them onto his TV show. It might look a little rough around the edges, but Mr. Chichak kept broadcasting his music programmes throughout the war against huge opposition. And apparently he's the man with all the contacts to help the band in their aim to set up the festival next year.
Ja bih volio da grupa Dodgy
We would like the group Dodgy
dođe u Sarajevo,
come to the Sarajevo,
da nastupi u okviru jednog festivala, a Dodgy bi bio specijalni gost.
and Dodgy will
Special guest.
Special guest.
Is all right?
Yeah, not right.
So Dodgy will be returning to Bosnia again next year, but they want more British bands to join them.
People come to us, you know, because people know now that like we'll come to Bosnia, you know, if we've got time we'll come. So people will say, look, we're doing a thing to Bosnia and like we want to raise some money, we've got an idea about doing a gig, and we'll go, yeah, we'll do it, you know, it's no problem to us, it's what we do, do you know what I mean? And bands like Oasis and Blue, it's what you do, you know what I mean? You do gigs, And so like, what makes this place so different? You know what I mean? It's like, this is important.
While Dodgy have been busy making plans for next year, Simon had sprung into action and got some equipment sent down from Sarajevo for tonight. The acoustic set the boys had planned at a local restaurant had suddenly turned into a full-blown gig.
To help me off the ground. Better come sooner than later. Can't stop feeling down.
I think maybe what's already been said and what we're doing here is that they make people forget their problems and for at least a day and to actually see what bands are like again, you know.
If I didn't have music in Britain, I don't know what I'd do. I'd go mad, you know. So I suppose bringing music out to people out here is you know, to young people, music's one of the most important things.
We're not going to change anything overnight. No one is, you know. But like, I would like to be part of the solution.
It might be just a small gig, but even here Dodgy have succeeded in bringing together a British, Spanish, African, Bosnian and Croatian audience. And with Mr Chichak's help, they have high hopes for a multicultural festival next year. But that's if more British bands will follow Dodgy's example and remember the real reason why they play music.
They look like an amazing trip. Has anyone gone on and said that they'll turn up with Dodgy when they go out there?
Well, what we did, the primary purpose of that visit was to see if it could be done. We've established that it could be done, and there's going to be, you know, a lot of work will have to go into getting it off the ground, but they really are committed, and I know that they're going to go back next year for a week, even if this doesn't come off, but really big high hopes for it.
They're doing great, of course they are, but the truth is, I guess, if there's no money there, they're not actually going to be able to follow up with other concerts because the money's not there.
Well, U2 are playing there in September. That's a start. Dodgy's trip there was a start, and I know that people are they're in talks, Dodgy are in talks with the possibility of supporting U2 and Massive Attack. And Massive Attack are like the biggest band over there. There's a huge passion for that kind of music. So I think that, yeah, the money isn't there, but we are making a huge headway. This is a really positive start.
Well, that's all we got time for. It's 5 to 2. No Straight Up next week, back in 2 weeks after Glastonbury. See you then.